Hi, welcome to the Balanced Body Pilates podcast series. I'm Amy Taylor Alpers from the Pilates Center in Boulder, Colorado. We are talking specifically about breath in this particular series, and we're looking at how the exercises enable your breath capacity and how they empower it, expand it, and strengthen the contraction of your exhale. And we're going to look at exercises on all different pieces of equipment, but we're going to look at it from the perspective of exercises that utilize a spring to help you, and then looking at exercises that don't use a spring anymore, and what have you learned from using a spring to enable you when you don't have a spring. So we're going to look at footwork, which is obviously a very key exercise in the Pilates system, and there's a lot of aspects to footwork that can really facilitate your breath right from the start of your workout. So if we miss some of these right here, it's going to be harder to breathe throughout the rest of it. And that has a lot to do with the tension that so many of us hold in our lower legs and joints. So we really want to try to get softening, strength, but not hardness out of the lower legs so that as we move, the breath mechanism is really enabled in its expansion and contraction. Okay, and we're going to also look a little bit at positioning of the spine and pelvis to see how that helps us breathe a little bit more effectively. So we're going to start in kind of the classical position. I know that many of you may have different footwork positions. That won't really matter because it's just looking at how the breath is affected no matter what the foot position. But again, looking at not having too much tension here so that when she steps on her feet, it's like an injection right up into the lungs, right? So that we don't block the push through the whole body. So as she pushes out, she gets an immediate inhale up into the lungs, and then a deep exhale, contraction to bend back in. So in Pilates, classically, when the spring opens, that is the expansion moment, that is the inhale moment. And when the spring closes, that's helping you push air out of your body. So you really want to actually relate to that. So you feel the spring and you and your lungs and your spine, and then you feel it all help you come back in, and you don't resist it. You just have a little bit of control. So you could even relax a little bit more, right? And exhale, come back in. Good. Now another thing that affects it, go ahead and stretch out. So we inhale. If the pelvis is a little bit back, I will sometimes come in and give it a little lift there so that these muscles are not inhibited in their contraction. If she's tucked back under, as we looked at in the very first in the podcast series, these muscles can't contract quite as well. So we want to have a little bit of a lumbar curve to start, just a relaxed position, not necessarily neutral, but something that's neutralized. So it's a little bit more relaxed in here so that as she goes ahead and bends, those muscles are very available to do their contraction. Okay, so one more big inhale and exhale, squeeze, right? Beautiful. Then we have this powerful contraction here to lift and switch the feet. Now this position is often the most congested. So if we go in and out and we haven't really worked open in the feet here, go ahead and stretch out. We'll see that the breath is a little bit impeded by that, right? Knees maybe tend to hyperextend because the ankle won't really flex, and so our deep shock absorption in the lower leg is disabling the softness we need for the breath. So I will often be here trying very hard to get a little more release in those ankles so that we can really feel that the lungs are what's happening and the deep abdominal contraction. Right? The feet are curling, they're trying very hard to wake up, soften and get some heat in them, and exhale. We might even look a little bit at placing the elbows in a way that doesn't lock out the breath either. And we'll do one more. Big inhale, expand and stretch open the lung. Deep exhale, squeeze and narrow. That power enables you to come to the heels and flex. Again, we find that there's often a lot of tension in this part of the foot and ankle and shin, and I'm always trying very hard to soften that for people so they can breathe. And exhale, deep squeeze. Good. You can use an image that's kind of like a parachute, so you expand open the parachute, and then you do a catch, and you float back down, right? So that you don't have to resist the movement of the spring with your quads too much. They work, but they work a little more with the support of that exhale. So the exhale is what we're interested in and what we're trying to empower the most. One last one, big inhale, take your feet with you, huge stretch, huge stretch, huge stretch. Deep exhale, squeeze, 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 squeeze. And then we come to the very last one, to the balls of the feet. And you stretch out again, you inhale as you expand the spring. And then you catch deep here, exhale, lower, lower, lower. And inhale, big, opening, expanding. And exhale, deep, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And if the legs are hanging at all, that can yank on the breath as well. So you want to have a nice support right in here. So if you can, Yvette, just drop your knees for 1 second and feel this weight. When there's that weight there and she breathes, it's going to be a lot harder to get her air in and out of her. So the legs need to maintain their connection to the body. And then you can do a nice big lift and a deep exhale. And one more time. Huge inhale, big, 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 big. And deep squeeze. Yes. And last time. Inhale, inhale, way up, very high. Lift, fill, fill, fill. And then you lift the knees and you bend and you exhale to come back in. Exactly. And the whole time that you're working on your footwork, because this is so often the very first exercise that you're going to be teaching somebody in their lesson that day, you want to maybe coach a lot of energy into getting the blood flow that's all full of oxygen into all of these tighter areas in the ankles and the feet and the shins, and enable in their mind also the idea that they're breathing for a very, very important purpose, and that's to get the oxygen everywhere, because oxygen is really what heals us. Okay, so in the next few podcasts, we'll be looking at more and more exercises like that. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.